I'm Michael Marsh. Welcome to the program dedicated to reestablishing constitutional government, first in Oregon and then in the United States. We already have a constitutional government on paper. It hasn't been done away with. But the people who, many of the people that take that oath to defend the Constitution, to uphold the Constitution, once they get into office, they ignore the Constitution. So, how do we deal with that? Well, we get our people in to office, people that will uphold the Constitution. Now, if you don't like what they're doing right now, get involved, get active. Either run for office or help somebody who is running for office. That's the only way. Well, there's two ways to do it: the ballot box and the bullet box. It's preferable to do it with the ballot box.
Yeah.
A lot better for everyone. I am going to be having a lot of candidates on for the next few months. I've had some, like I did several Republican primary candidates for the U.S. Senate and Congress and State House, State Senate, and I will be doing some more of that. Plus, I'm a candidate myself for House Representative District 22, which is Salem, north of Market Street, and it goes up the I-5 corridor to Woodburn. And hopefully you'll vote for me. And that's what it's going to take is, people getting out and voting. There's a lot of people upset with the corruption in government, and rightfully so. But it can be changed. And right now is the time to do it because people are aware of things ain't right. I also have with me my friend Gloria McCleary, who's
Hello.
has her own program called We the People. Any questions you have for me?
No, well, I'd like to know what your goals are if you get to be congressman.
Well, a state rep.
Say state rep.
Well, there are some agencies that need to be abolished. There's several things I'd like to do. For instance, the way the government is paying for our destruction is with high taxes.
Federal funding.
Income with federal money. I'd like to block the federal funding off for the state. And I'd also like to do away with the income tax and go back to using natural resources. Trees can be replanted. Yeah.
Right.
And they do need to be replanted. But that would put people to work, and the government has to limit itself, to do what is actually the proper function of government. Since the income tax, they've always, expanded, keep expanding the role of government. And so I want to do away with that.
Well, since you brought that up, there's something I would like to say. We have a lady that's an activist friend of ours, and she has a house that's been appraised, and it was appraised at one value, and then all of a sudden they decide to, according to the value of the house, increase the taxes on it. So it's funny how that house all of a sudden raised when that got on the ballot and got voted in. All of a sudden it raised in property value. The appraisal went way up because they knew that it would be to their advantage to have it higher because they was going to get a percentage of what the value of the house was in taxes. So that was but that's a good example of what we're talking about. They get something voted in, whether we voted for it or not. We should have found out why they wanted it voted in first, and then second of all, she's paying more. She's getting more. They're getting more taxes out of her now because of the value of the house went up, and it didn't change any. I mean, nobody painted, nobody did any improvements to it, but
Yeah,
that's amazing how they seem to find a way to sock it to you, regardless of what the vote outcomes is.
Well, the vote out was designed to keep the government from not raising the rates. In fact, you have specifically the goal said, okay, paying too high a property taxes now, so they can't do the rate. They can't raise the rate anymore. So what they do is they say, okay, the house itself is worth more now,
Right.
but it isn't. You can't sell, especially in today's economy, you can't sell for anywhere near what they've got it appraised at. And that brings up kind of another issue with administrative rules. And every bureaucracy has them. Child services, they have written up rules that they can spy on children and everything, spy on families. And the legislature kind of went along with that. I would do away with that law and repeal it. They need to start having warrants when they go to people's homes.
Yes, they do. Or someone at least should have broken the law or committed a crime in order to have the children taken away. I mean, just to be able to say someone's allegations, which don't even stand up in court unless you can prove it, to say, okay, someone accused you of something, and then all of a sudden they come take your children. That's not right. That's not the way we were found. That's not what we're based on.
No, and so, but each, like the administrative rules, that they're allowed to lie and falsify documents and stuff like that. And each bureaucracy has its own rules. And okay, there's enough laws that are passed by the legislature. There's thousands of them, but for every a law that's actually passed by the legislature will be maybe a couple pages, 2 or 3 pages long. But then there'll be 10 or 15 pages of administrative rules, which have the effect of law. But I would like to change that so that in order for the bureaucratic rules to have the effect of law, they have to be presented to the legislature, and the legislature has to sign off on them. And if the legislature doesn't sign off on it, then they're not to have the effect of law. And as the Constitution says, the legislature is the one that's supposed to make laws. And what the legislature does, they're called laws. What the bureaucracy is doing, they're called administrative rules. And just because they change the name doesn't change the reality.
Doesn't change the box, yeah. Just because they change the box doesn't mean they change what's inside the box.
Yeah, and that's why we have to, since they are passing laws, and they're not supposed to, because they're the executive branch, they're not supposed to be passing laws. So the administrative rules need to be approved of by the legislature before they become laws. I mean, they could have administrative rules that they consider advisory, for the bureaucrats or whatever. But if they want it to have the effect of law, then they have to come through the legislature.
Right, and I believe that it should be added on there who will be accountable, even if the positions of the person changes. It should be that whoever resides in that seat should be able to be willing to be accountable for what, or they need to write up, like the school board, a memorandum offering each side that's not benefiting from it a way out if it's not working for them without being penalized or held accountable because they've decided that it's not in their best interest or the children's best interest or whichever parties that are in that position that are going to be affected by these rules and regulations and so forth.
Yeah, and there are some, bureaucracies that I would like to abolish altogether.
There's a few of them I'd like to see abolished too.
Down to different levels of government. Mentioned earlier the Child Protection Agency. Okay, the federal government's involved, the state's involved, the county's involved, everybody's involved. The feds are giving money, which is not a proper constitutional way to spend federal dollars. Another reason why income tax should be abolished at the federal as well as the state level. But Okay, they pay the state to kidnap the child. Okay, the state's doing the kidnapping. I would get the federal government out, say, okay, we're not taking your money anymore. And I would eliminate the bureaucracy at the state level. Now, the counties will probably still have a bureaucracy to deal with the, because sometimes, you know, like parents do get into car accidents and are killed, or you know,
In a
parents
position
go
where
to
they can't afford the
jail,
kid. Yeah, there's
yeah,
a lot of differences.
and stuff like this. You know, these things do happen, and there's nobody to take care of the kid. So you know, it's okay, but the county's paying for it, so they're going to be a little more careful about how they spend the money, and they're not going to want to keep them very long. You know, try to find a relative usually. Yeah,
That's what was voted in. When,
yeah, that's what they're supposed to be doing now. but
that's what they're supposed
they
to be
don't.
doing. That's correct.
You know, sometimes they do, but too often they don't. Way
Most
too
often, yeah. Most often they do not.
And you know, but if the county's doing it, it's more likely, you know, because you can hold somebody accountable first off, and second off, if they're paying for it, they don't want to pay for it, so they're going to find somebody real quick. And the first people they would look at would be the family members.
And that's where the kids should go, somewhere that's familiar and kept in the family, regardless of whether, you know, because there's lots of reasons why they take the children, but right now it's in their best interest to do it because of federal funding to get the stuff paid for. And every time somebody takes a class, they get paid for it. Even if the person who's taking the class has to pay for it, then they're still getting paid from the federal funding on for each person that takes the class, no matter how many people's involved. And if, like you said, if that person knows when they're in that seat or giving that signature on that piece of paper, that you better make sure that it's going to go right because you're held accountable. And there's no accountability, and that's what's got to change. If you're going to mess with somebody's children, you better be willing to pay the piper because you're messing with an unconditional love there that does not go away. Just because, not even, I mean, no matter how many times the mom and dad fights with their children or how many times the dad or the kid hollers, I hate you, you know, because they broke some rule, there's a conditional love there that surpasses any other kind of love there is. There's nothing that can supersede it.
Yeah, and the government is, you know, they shouldn't be involved at all in that, especially at the state or the federal level. And once we get out of that, there's going to be a lot fewer problems with Oregon families. I would also like to get rid of the Oregon Attorney General's office. There's supposed to be the
Overseer?
well, there's the state's law firm, basically.
Okay.
Like, and when the people vote in an issue, for instance, the people voted that marriages were supposed to be between men and women, and the homosexuals file a lawsuit. Okay. Now, the job of the Attorney General is to defend the people's vote. Okay, they didn't defend the people's vote. They said, okay, we're not going to defend it. We don't believe the same thing that people do. Okay, they didn't do their job. Whether you agree with them or not,
Right.
they didn't do their job.
Right. I understand what you're saying.
Then also, you know, I've been doing, you know, been watching for almost 20 years now, the DHS, for instance. Now, many of the kids that are, first off, the Attorney General allowing them to be kidnapped. And in a lot of cases, not all cases, sometimes they end up with people that are decent. But sometimes they're given to child molesters and all that. And the state knows it, you know, they've got the documentation. You know, a mutual friend of ours, Will Gaston, and late Pamela Gaston, they got the documents from the Attorney General's office. And they know that his daughter was being raped in 9 different homes at least, put on psychotropic drugs, tortured, all kinds of terrible, nasty things. Attorney General didn't do anything about it.
Nope, she didn't do her job. She didn't protect them, just protect the child.
Yeah. Well,
You
at
know?
that time it was Hardy Myers, but you know, still, it was their job to protect the child. And instead, they went after Pamela and Will.
Stole their home. I know they stole their home from them. They charged them, put criminal charges on them, and yeah, they tormented the Gastons. They still.
Yeah. And so they're not doing their job of protecting the citizens, especially Melissa Gaston was definitely not protected.
Right.
It's hard to believe she's the only one. If they're allowing this to be done to her, you can bet they're doing it to other kids as well. And so that's another reason, because they're allowing these terrible things to happen.
And they're paying them too, by the way, to do it. They give these homes funding for being a foster parent, and so it's like not only do they not do anything about it, they paved the way for it to be done. If you or the natural citizen does something like that, there's going to be, and it'll be all over the newspaper.
Yeah,
but the
newspapers
you
go
to jail,
and
and oh my God, everybody would be devastated. But because they're doing it behind closed doors, it goes unaddressed.
Because it's the government doing it.
Right. They hide it and cover it up.
And so that's another. They're not doing their job, and that. And another thing is, recently, Governor Kitzhaber said he wanted the Attorney General to investigate the cover Oregon because of, they spent all hundreds of millions of dollars on their website and it doesn't work.
Right.
So he wants the Attorney General to investigate, and they say, okay, we're going to investigate. And here it is, the largest law firm in the state, and they're hiring a slew of new attorneys to investigate this case. Why?
Right.
If they got to hire more attorneys, why? What are we paying them for?
And why do we have the same ones that if we need new ones, then there's something obviously wrong with the other ones that they don't want. Maybe they're just trying to cover each other's butts like they do on everything else.
At the very least, they're a waste of our tax dollars.
Right.
That whole agency is a waste of money, at the very least. And some of them are really guilty of criminal negligence at least. So that agency needs to be done away with.
Yeah, we need to do something about the State Bar Association too. They're presenting one thing and then doing something different. They're not standing up for the people who or objecting even. One friend of her attorney just sat there and didn't even put on the record that when they said the state claimed that she hadn't finished her classes or she hadn't, been in compliance. But all the documents they gave us said just the opposite, said unfounded even. So if everybody's saying unfounded, why was there still even anything going on? And they're still making a ruling now over it.
And all the judges have to be bar members in order to become judges, and that's insane. Also, all the attorneys, the Bar Association, they have the same, what is it called? Anyway, the insurance company?
The PLF.
PLF,
yep, the lawyers' funds. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so if one of them does you wrong and you sue, every attorney has to support the corrupt attorney that
They got caught. The one that got caught, yeah. So there's everybody contributes to keep that one from, to keep that one to pay the bill or the lawsuit or that. But you don't see anybody doing any charges, doing any time.
And the judge you're going in front of is a member of the same organization.
Right. So let's let the fox watch the hen house, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you're right. That does need to go away. I'd also like to do away with the Department of Motor Vehicles. They issue a biometric card, called a driver's license or whatever. And first off, this biometric card, they can put all kinds of information on you. With the NSA spying on you, they can know everything about you, and they know where to come and get you. And if you need to go to the hospital, they can say, "Oh, we don't like this person, so he's not getting proper medical care." And eventually, a few years ago, the legislature passed a law that allows them to tax every highway, bike path, and bridge in Oregon. Okay, how are they going to tax people for riding your bike? Okay, they're going to be tracking you through this card,
Right.
this driver's license. They're going to be keeping track of you, where you are, what time you're there, everything like that. And that could be misused pretty easily. And there used to be a commercial that, you know, people, the guy would go into the store and he'd just grab stuff, put it in a coat and everything, you know, kind of like he was shoplifting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and he'd walk out and he'd say, this is what we can do. And they have the technology to do that now. Okay, they can watch your card and they can take the money out of your, you know, your bank account, because they'll have everything tied together, your bank account,
Yep.
your
Mm-hmm.
the driver's license and everything. And if they decide they don't like you,
Mm-hmm. Or you make one of them mad, like this one lady we know. The officer pushed her daughter down, and she makes a formal complaint. And the next thing you know, there's hell to pay. You know, but it's sure nice for the police officer to assault the young lady.
yeah, and they could, and they're not using it yet, but the technology is there. You know, they could, and you could end up not being able to buy food. in the
Right,
future.
right, exactly.
And they have all the, you know, Oregon legislature, when the national ID law was passed, they recognized that it was kind of dangerous, you know, because George W. was in charge. Okay. But now Obama's in charge, and a year or so ago they gave him, they passed it so that we're now part of the National ID Act. You know, so they are hooked up to the NSA, you know, all the spying that they're doing. Yeah. And it's not an agency that really does anything for the people except suck our money right now. Yeah. You go in, you pay them a fee, and then 4 years later you got to pay them another fee, and another fee, and another fee.
Right.
You know, you just take our money. You know, people say, well, you need to have drivers that are safe. Okay, that's true. You know, cars can be dangerous, and no doubt about that. But if someone's driving recklessly, who pulls you over? Is it the DMV official, or is it the a cop? You know, DMV doesn't pull you over if you're driving recklessly, and so that's not really. And people, you know,
we're not getting the value of our money out of it.
you get,
It's a waste of tax dollars.
if your car is stolen, you know, you don't call DMV, you call your insurance company or the police. And between the police and the insurance company, they can do everything the DMV does.
Right.
That is a legitimate function of government. And you don't have to pay them that $70 every 4 years. Is there something else you want to say?
No, I just want to encourage the people to get a hold of us at CCTV via Miss Kelly. Phone number is 503-588-2288. We have a few people that are going to ensure that these policies and agendas are abolished or got away with, or that they're at least following the Constitutional. And Patty Millen, State Senate. For District 10, we got Ray Baldwin for running U.S. Congress, District 5, and then Aaron Auer for governor, state governor, and then Michael Marsh is running for state representative in District 22. So, and we've got some initiatives and petitions and maybe some recalls on some judges that we're really concerned about that, you know, we need to take care of to help these people who are, so many kids that are being stolen away and without due process or recourse of law. You know, there's just making more victims, and It doesn't seem like we're getting anywhere without proper people getting together and making a difference, whether it be at the Capitol or putting a sign somewhere or helping the brother that's on the street, without anything. So I'm not real sure what's going on here, but
Okay.
we got a couple more minutes. Is there anything else you're concerned about at the legislative government level?
There's several other things. For instance, I would like to stop the policy of the government stealing the property of widows and orphans.
Right, they do that a lot.
Yeah, they call it an inheritance tax. And it's really wrong. It's immoral to because people, they've been paying the taxes all along, and if you have something, you want to leave it to your child, and so they can carry on, the family farm or the family business. And the government, they put this really high inheritance tax on, and it's really evil. In fact, this is something that we've been fighting for close to 1,000 years. In Magna Carta in 1220, I believe it was. But anyway, they said, King, you and your sheriffs will no longer steal from widows and orphans. Now, and the king signed on to it because the people were there and armed.
Yeah.
And the king, he had his army there too, but he decided not to fight a war. But we're back there now. The government is stealing the property of widows and orphans. Again. And if I'm elected, that's one of the things that I will try to stop.
I think we need to do something about the statistic issue too. They know that if you have a single parent versus one of the parents that's married, they will most likely, to change the statistic rates, they'll take the parent that has that's just as qualified as the father, or the opposite one, and they will take the kid away and give it to the one that's married, just to be able to change the statistic levels, or to make it look like they've done something. Like they say that, well, the interest rate went down, when really all they did was raise the bar on the other one. They didn't really do anything, but people don't realize that. And but getting a bonus and changing people's environment on the children to change statistic rates or the numbers that are going through is not constitutional. It's not just or fair to the children or anybody else. And and they shouldn't definitely not be getting a bonus for every 10 kids they take or every 10 cars they sell. They should be getting a bonus for every kid they reunite with that parent. And if they weren't getting, awarded for all the bad things they would do, and change it to good things that they could be accomplishing because of the federal funding that needs to be abolished away with, and accountability that needs to be held, then we would make a difference.
I would say, instead of trying to do good, and they try to justify it by doing good, just not do anything at all. And we are out of time. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you.
Good night.